a few things. First of all, I gotta, I get online and I'm just gonna read a few questions, that people ask. Excuse me. Bless me and bless anybody out there. Um, okay, so what we're gonna say is that um, I'm gonna answer this question for somebody. Somebody was asking. Excuse me. Again, welcome back. Somebody was asking just a general question of, where has all this hate come from between the parties, between the left and the right, right? Why is America so divided right now? Um, I'm gonna be honest with you. Politicians, they like to politicize, right? So America has gone through a lot of things in the last 25 years, and unfortunately, both parties are guilty of this. Both parties are guilty of being politicians, and what they do is, they try to convince that their party is great, that their party is good, is better than the other party, right? And so that they will be able to fix the problems. Um, More times I have seen that when the Democrats win, they end up fixing the problems, right? When Republicans win, we get the feeling that they're fixing the problems. We get this more like, establishment, feeling that we are, that we're safe in the hands of these people. But then again, they undo everything that the Democrats have done. And basically, when Trump got in there, well, first of all, George Bush, which was a Republican, got us into this massive war, right? And later the Department of Homeland Security was formed because of 9/11, and that really, like, was hampering taking away our rights, basically, and not to mention that the CEO still maintained a far right wing capitalistic mentality, materialistic, that they actually profited off of the crisis, and they continue to make money during all this. So you know, it's really bad when you think about 9/11, because Republicans, they wanted blood, they wanted revenge, and they got it. They went over there and they unleashed a evil demon of of death in the Middle East that led to 87 times more people dying, for every one American that was dead, that died. You know what I mean? Of course, there was 18. You could go back to look at those facts. There was like about 18 Saudi Arabians, but they didn't invade Saudi Arabia. They went over there and went after Saddam Hussein, who they had previously given money and sponsored his rise to power in the first place. Um, so anyway, um, so you know, right now we are in far right wing politics. So like, what has led to this type of where we're at right now, right? Well, the narrative that has been constructed by the right, what I mean, is that the Democrats haven't been able that the Democrats haven't solved anything. The reason Republicans believe this is because, and why people believe this is because Republicans has either derailed or undid everything that the Democrats do, that the Democrats did. So the Democrats seem like they haven't done anything because you don't see what they've done, because the Republicans have either derailed it, never reached bipartisan issues, or completely, I mean, Republicans got to the point where now they're helping create the issues so that they can politicize them, right? Like not solving a bipartisan immigration issue, a law that was, Kamala and Biden had a full drawn out plan to revamp the entire immigration network, the whole immigration border, the whole border system. They had a whole plan, with detailed and everything that they presented. The Republicans shut it down, right? Because instead they wanted the border to have outdated, you know, outdated outdated system that doesn't even allow people to get their visa for like 20 years, you know what I mean, or some shit. It doesn't allow them to even get their shit for like 10 years or whatever. It's like they work and they pay taxes, they build a whole city by then, you know what I mean, and that they still can't even live there. That's crazy, you know what I mean. And unfortunately, for people that are Germanic or English or whatever, You know what I mean? If you have a problem against immigrants, then you have a problem against when your people came over here through Ellis Island, and and they wanted to be, they were nothing when they came over here, and they wanted to become something. You know what I mean? And so you not giving the people the ability to do to become something. That's just wrong. You know what I'm saying? That's just immoral. That's just like, I don't even talk to people that believe that immigrants can't come over here and that they can't contribute to society, because when they came over here, they weren't nothing either. You know, the people that went through Ellis Island, you know, if you have a problem against immigration, you have a problem against your descendants coming over here as well. You know what I mean? And so that's crazy. I can't believe that type of xenophobia and that type of belief. But anyway, again, try to revamp the immigration, which was supposed to stop the sporadic, influxes of this is what I'm convinced that the Republicans didn't want to help, and that they actually added to this crisis, because it is the only thing that is now that Trump is focusing on, that he's taken care of or whatever. It's always just been that, because he sucks at foreign policy. He doesn't fix the economy. He sucks at politicking. He sucks at politics. He doesn't help the people. Right? He couldn't handle the COVID crisis. He let 500,000 Americans die during COVID because he lied about it, and because he didn't care about them going back to work. He wanted to get them back in those poultry warehouses and shit. That led to 500,000 mainly black people dying, because mainly people who couldn't afford to take the to not work. You know what I mean? Meanwhile, the rich had a tax cut, and we're getting richer during that time. Literally just fucking us over like never before, like no other president that I've ever seen before. You know what I mean? He bailed out the rich, and he let all the lower and middle class out there to fend for themselves while lying to them during a COVID crisis. And then before, not following, he didn't follow safety protocol. He didn't want to wear a mask. He got sick, but he didn't tell everybody that. He didn't tell everybody how he got sick, right? And then he wanted people to go back to work when it was not safe to go back to work, without giving them hazmat suits and or safety goggles or masks or the proper protocols. That during a pandemic, he wanted them to go back to work when things were not fully, under control, and they ended up dying. And I have people who died, right? And it mainly happened to black and brown and minorities, right? Who can't afford the time off. Who were starving. I mean, I remember the people were starving. I was starving. I couldn't even get a job, right? People who lost their homes, people lost their, they defaulted. A lot of people, we were left out to die during COVID, okay? By Trump. Don't ever forget that. You know what I mean? If you're one of those lucky people who had it easy, okay? I'll tell you right now, you were not the majority, and that the minority people, this is where immigrants actually helped, because they helped put everything back online. If it was up to Trump and we didn't have immigrants, then we would still be, it would have taken forever to fucking get back online. And a lot of people, more people would have fucking probably died. A lot of people would be still brainwashed. But Trump is the worst president I've ever seen, and he didn't even care, and he doesn't even care to apologize. He's the worst president I've ever freaking seen. And I'm pretty sure at this point that the Republicans have actually allowed the immigrations to influx to happen in order to blame the Democrats for it. Just like they blame natural disasters. I mean, I look, let me tell you something about the establishment, okay? People like to bring up the slavery and racism and shit, and Planned Parenthood is like the left, the Democrats are the supporters and the originators of all this shit. You know what I mean? Let me just say something. You know what I mean? We live in a place where the establishment, it was mainly and predominantly white people. Okay, y'all like to bring up things that are not contemporary to today's times. You know what I mean? They're not modern anymore. I will tell you right now that the Democrats, right, have had a black president, and have, even though the Republicans have tried to stop them, they have tried to help, right, minorities and stuff by giving by democracy, having our voice heard, which means something. You know what I mean? If it was up to Republicans, we would still be in this merit-based system based on classism and privileges, and we wouldn't be able to ever have our voice heard. And we know that the corruption from Republicans, we know the Department of Homeland Security violated so many of our rights. We know the corrupt police brutality and the corruption. We know the corruption in the justice system and the prison system that should be abolished, because they don't even respect our rights. Okay, they're just there to protect they're just there as a deterrent for President Trump to oppress his political opponents, and also used by rich people and corporation CEOs to protect their businesses. They're not there to protect us anymore. We're not the priority anymore. We're not the police priority anymore. All they're not here defending our rights. They're over there. They're following policies and procedures. They actually sign up to kick your ass and to stomp over your rights. Okay, the police don't work for you no more. They work for companies and CEOs and billionaires and privileged stock, like the top 10%, and the people who are racist who use them as a deterrent. They're more like Nazis. And fascist societies, they're like the Nazis that become a military government where the majority of fascism, it leads to that, like this authoritarianism that like has a lot of members, like an ultra nationalist, society where many of the members become military, that the president or whoever the dictator, charges to do whatever it is that their vision is, and that leads to that's what they like the police can like essentially can become, you know because like the Department of Homeland Security stipulated that they could ask anybody for their ID, you know and it didn't used to be like that, because it used to be that people were stop and frisk. We lived in no stop and frisk zones. You know what I mean? Like the tax happened in New York, yet it reverberated where people thought that the police thought that they could just ask anybody for their ID, and people forget their rights. They forget their Fifth Amendment right. They forget all their Bill of Rights. This is why we had a Bill of Rights, by the way. This is why John Adams built a Bill of Rights, because he knew that there would come a time where bankers and other people would try to want to get into America, and they would try to create it like Europe with all their feudalistic insanity and stuff that they had over there. You know what I mean? So, the Bill of Rights are supposed to freedom, of speech, the right to assembly, the right to bear arms, the right to personal property, no unlawful search and seizure, of your personal property or belongings, including your person, you know what I mean, or your car or anything. You're not supposed to allow yourself to be searches. It's your right. You know what I mean? You're not supposed to answer who you are and present ID. It's your right not to say, I don't answer any questions. And you got the right to, you evoke your rights. That's what you do against a police, a tyrannical police force, right? But when I was a kid, they try to act, like the kids don't have rights neither. Like they just try to find loopholes and try to act like, like, oh, if they're immigrants, they don't have rights. I'm like, they still got human rights. What are you talking about? Oh, and if you're a kid, you don't have rights. Yeah, they do. Like, who said that they don't have rights? I mean, like I said, the establishment wants, I mean, when they want to do something, they try to find shortcuts and all this stuff, So I know police brutality firsthand. Yes, they're corrupted. Yes, I know corruption firsthand. And yes, I believe they should be abolished. I'm not a reformer of this idea, because the reformer, the whole thing should be abolished. The whole reason why I believe that they should be abolished is because you see how Trump, right? He brought up a law from 200 years ago that was 1798 against immigrants, right? During wartime. Oh, let me explain to you how I found out Trump has committed another act of treason. And I think I should say this off, because people should understand that he has committed another act of treason. I say another because I have about 5 things that he has done that is straight up treason, and I want you to think for yourself, right? When I say this, because people need to understand this. Is if you're like, I'm an American, or whatever, it is our duty. You know what I mean? It is our duty. We're not bought out judges. We're not bought out, Republicans that got, what I mean, spineless cowards that they are, that committed, who have betrayed their oath and affirmation. But we are the people. That's why, and they know they're guilty, which is why they're trying to destroy democracy, because they think that, when we find out that we're going to hold them accountable, which we should, which we are, what I mean? Because, and that's why they're trying to suppress the democracy in general, what I mean? Because they are guilty. But here are about 5 things that is treasonous. First of all, when Trump sided with Putin and went to his defense during the very first administration and the very first public uh, conference with Putin, you know what I mean, he was asked to address Putin for the election hacking that happened, right? Well, what Trump decided to do in those moments, right, really dictated who he was and where he stood and where he was, who he was aligned with. You know, it was a tell. It was a showing of things to come. It was a sign of things to come. And this is the moment where he should have been impeached immediately. I don't care what people would have said. This that like, oh, show's over. You know, the apprentice, lock him up. You know what I mean? You know, that's when it should have been over. But you know, it was really when he committed his first, like when I saw, and I like his, I saw it blatantly. You know, I'm sure that he had done it before behind the scenes, but I saw it blatantly. But by the time he did it, I realized it was like I didn't find out till like 2 3 years later. I didn't think that America could allow such despicable, you know, treasonous acts to happen, right? But I'll get to as to why, right? Actually, I'm over here skipping scenes and stuff. Okay, but that is the first time he committed treason, when he went to Putin's defense after being told that every American agency had sufficient evidence to conclude with great certainty that Putin had interfered with our elections, right? And what did Trump decide to do? Well, so remember this story, because what he decided to do was he decided to derail every. I mean, he decided to derail the FBI investigation that was looking into the election hacking of Putin and him, you know, against Hillary. And he decided to actually attack Hillary Clinton, attack the Democratic Party, and attack every single agency of the United States that was investigating this incident, which was the FBI, the NSA, the CIA, the Department of Defense, the Department of Justice, right? The cyber intelligence community, the election, people that were in charge of the electoral election, and every single, and of course the American people, right, that supported the Democrats. He decided to go up there and talk and start talking about fringe topics, and so let me tell you something, you know. So let me rewind a little bit here, you know, because that happened in 2016, 17, right? When and the question that I posed earlier was what a man said on news. He said, "Where do you think, like, where has all this hate came from? Why is the country so divided? Why are people so divided and stuff? Who is the new party here?" Well, I'll have you know that that whatever you have to say about Obama, okay, he, as I explained, most of the things that Obama, and the Democrats did have been derailed. Their plans were derailed. I have an example with New York. They were trying to build a tunnel, right, from New York to New Jersey. They had already gotten approved of the plans. They had already gotten the loan for the plans for billions of dollars. The Democratic leaders were trying to build this, right? The Democratic senators were trying to build this. The people, right, were like, hey, when was it going to be built? You know what I mean? Well, the thing is that when Republicans, so I'm gonna say it like how it happened. They were trying to get it done, but when they went to New Jersey, the New Jersey Republican mayor denied it and said, no, we don't want to do it. After years of litigation, after years of Republicans stonewalling them and trying to not pass the bill, not so that they can do it, the Democrats are trying to tell their people, we're going to do it. It's been approved. It's on the way. And then Republicans, last minute, they veto it, or whatever they do, they derail it. You know what I mean? And this was to install a tunnel between New York to New Jersey. And when they finally, so they have to go through a whole process, all this litigation to try to build it. And then when they get to the last stage, right, after years, right, and of course, like, the Democrats are like, what happened? I thought you were going to build it. You know what I mean? The Republicans did this on purpose, to not allow the Democrats for that tunnel to be built, right? It's political. And so when they get to the last stage, then the mayor of the Republicans were like, no, you can't do that. No, we can't do that. You know what I mean? After years. So they try to scrap the whole program, and of course, program that already has funding, that already has the money to start building, right? So, and then the reason they do this It's because the Democrats later think, hey man, what happened? I thought you were, you got the money, right? Like we gave you, that's our, because they pay with tax money. So in their eyes, what Republicans try to do, when I tell you that they try to undo everything Democrats do, is they turn to the people and say, look at the Democrats. They haven't done anything, and yet you've given them their money. So they must be hoarding it. They're stealing it, right? That's what they try to say, when they're the ones that stopped them from doing the projects that they got funding for in the first place. You understand what I'm saying? And I'm just saying that so you can understand, because that's how Republicans have been doing Democrats for the longest, for the last, like, all these years, because they created a narrative, which is that the Democrats are incompetent and that they're evil. So that they're hoarding and stealing money, or whatever. When it's the Republicans that are making it so that the money that was supposed to go somewhere is just sitting there, because the Republicans denied they didn't want to reach bipartisan agreements to build a tunnel from New York to New Jersey, right? You can blame the Republican mayor of New Jersey for stopping that, even though they got the fundings and they waited through all the litigation, through all the hoops and all the paperwork, all the legislation. Even though it's all good to go, Republicans derail it. No pun intended, right? But that's because so that they can go and tell the people that the Democrats are ineffective, that the Democrats must be hoarding the money. You know what I mean? This is what they're doing. They're gaslighters, and then they want to come out and say that crap, right? So now, now Doge, right? Now Doge, Doge is cleaning up. The reason why Doge there's so much mess is because of the Republicans. You'll find shit like that. You'll find money just sitting there that was supposed to go to a Democratic party. They'll blame it on the Democrats, even though the Republicans are the ones that for the reason why that money's still there, because the Republicans are not trying to freaking reach bipartisan issues. They do not want to play ball with the Democrats, and it's been like that for the longest. They didn't want to, because they want to politicize it. You understand what I'm saying? That's what the Republicans, these gaslighting crack, man, these white racist, establishment do. They do not like black and brown people. They do not like Democrats. Okay? So they try to make him look ineffective, make him look incompetent, just like how Trump, during that meeting, went and said, he started accusing Hillary Clinton, accusing of the server and the email, fringe topics, of quote words from that activate his MAGA fan base, right? That had been spread on their conspiracy theories. That's what his argument was in front of, while defending Putin. But that's not all. He also, dissed and called the FBI. He dissed every single agency incompetence. But the reason he dissed the FBI, because the FBI was doing the investigation, right? And he said that the FBI was incompetent because they were only going after him, but not going after Hillary's emails. Like what? They were talking about the election hacking, and he went to Hillary's emails and defending Putin, when every single agency said that it was Putin with great certainty, and he attacked Democrats instead. You see, that, ladies and gentlemen, if you do not know the technical definition of treason as it is stated in the Constitution, is when you represent a foreign country's interests instead of your own country's interests. So I would like to explain how the hell is defending Putin and attacking the people that say that he's guilty, that are our side, from our country, and attacking our elected Democratic leaders. How is that to the people's best interest of the United States? How is that to the United States people's best interest? The answer is it's not. Defending Putin does not help us in any fucking single way. Okay? And attacking our Democratic leaders is, while defending Putin, is not helping our people in any single fucking way. The reality is that that's the definition of treason. You know what I mean? And this is what he committed in 2017, right? This is what he did, the first press conference he had with Putin as president. He committed treason. Now, you guys, like I said, think for yourselves. You know what I mean? And don't just because he was in charge. Look, man. Those judges are bought out. Like I just explained to you, Republicans have been trying to derail Democrats this entire time for freaking, more than a decade. So you see, so people ask, where did and I believe some of these Republicans do that so that they can win in their local areas, right? But at the same time, when it came down to things like bipartisan issues like the border bill, I think that, I mean, I'm convinced that the Tren of Agua is a CIA, construct, a psyop, you know. Tren de Agua, I don't Tren de Agua. I think that that's like a CIA psyop. It is the culmination of the CIA intervention in these countries. Of like I said, okay. So what is the new party, right? That has arisen as to why there's so much hate. You think it's the Democrats, right? And you think it's the Republicans. I know that the Republicans are dirty, right? I know that they're sellouts, right? What it really is globalists and other countries' interference into our nation, right? And when I say other countries, I mean Russia. Okay? You know why? Because Latin America does not have anybody as strong enough as Russia. Okay? And the reason and so their psyops probably are not I'm not saying that the Latinos are dumb or Latin America is dumb. I'm just saying that the Russia has way more better brainwashing tactics than Latinos. Okay, just saying. We're more spiritual people. We don't lie like that. Um, MK Ultra is a CIA thing. Russia, okay, they got KGB, they got Russian intelligence. Okay, that they are into that stuff. And so when you want to talk about what is ripping you're basically asking what is ripping our country apart. I'm gonna tell you it's weak leadership from Trump. You know what I mean? But it's actually Russia and other countries that have brainwashed you into thinking, and globalists as well, billionaires and globalists like Elon Musk, who have spread propaganda to make you think of us, make you think of things like that the Democrats are evil. You know what I mean, and how I know that you're brainwashed is because Pizzagate that Alex Jones was preaching for like 15 years was obviously debunked. Y'all still call y'all still have something against Hillary and Bill with no proof. Pizzagate was just a fucking fairy tale. It was no evidence. It was a conspiracy theory, right? Where did that conspiracy theory originate from? Well, I believe it originated from Russia. I mean, and the thing is that they did this to you before 2016, on Facebook and on every other app. And I know this for sure because I have been around and I've been a hacker since I was like 12, right? I've seen the dot com bubble. Well, I didn't see the dot com bubble, but I was there with AOL online with dial up. Okay, I've been online since like 2000. You know what I mean? Probably 1999 or 98 actually. Actually 97, I think I can remember the first Windows 97, I think it was. So we've been online for a minute. You know what I mean? And I've seen the whole transformation. I was there before when YouTube first started blowing up. When YouTube was still, I mean, I was one of the first subscribers of some of these channels. I remember when PewDiePie had like 27,000, or he had less than 100,000 viewers. I mean, no, for real. Like he had less than the 20 subscribers. He had like 27,000 subscribers. PewDiePie, remember PewDiePie? I mean, I was there before YouTube was even, made. So why do I say this? Because I have seen how people have reacted. I've seen generations. I've seen what the internet has been used for. I have seen how the good and the bad. You know what I mean? And I understand that that the internet has been used to brainwash people. You know what I mean? That also that it has been used and exploited, and that is where you open up yourself to influence from places otherwise. And so that's how you got brainwashed. You know what I mean? And so some people think they're so smart by turning off the TV just to get on their cell phones, just to get on the internet, just to get on social media. They say fake news, fake media, and then they get on social media. So what do you think social media? You think social media is not real media? You think it's not, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I mean? You're you know what I'm saying? Like what? And like, do you want to get guillotine or do you want to get shocked? You know what I mean? I want, I'm shocked personally, but the point is that what I'm trying to say is that yeah, that is what has divided this country is misinformation. You know what I mean? From Russia, but it's not just that, but also globalists. You know what I mean? And that's what has convinced MAGA that the Dems are evil, right? And that's why they're convinced that the Dems are evil. But let me tell you something. The Republicans have worked on their own narrative against the Democrats, and this has helped them. But Trump is okay. But Trump is a man who uses anything he can get for power. You know what I mean? He doesn't have a conscience. He doesn't care. He is ruthless. He is merciless. This man, but he's a coward. You know what I mean? He's a coward though. But he is a very egotistical, evil, wicked man. You know what I mean? And so he's not a tough man. He's diabolical. I mean, and so when he his plan, right, has not necessarily coincided with Republicans. He doesn't even rely on the Republicans, right? And Republicans have tried to refute him before, but they don't understand that the media is what got Donald Trump elected. The fake news that he so much tries to stay away from, that he so much hates or whatever, that's the same shit that got him elected. Fake misinformation on the internet and fear mongering from globalists, right? And Russia interference and stuff. People that want to see the U.S. be destroyed, you know what I mean, and divided. Not gonna lie, that's what they, that's what it is. We know that Trump will fuck up America, you know what I mean, and and it's just like the Republicans are just like, oh man, like we can't beat them, join them, So that's what Republicans are like. They're spineless, bought out little worms that have betrayed their constitution because, like I said, Trump is a traitor. I mean, and they're not even stopping it. They're not even standing up for their constitutional republic that they care so much about. You know what I mean? Yeah, bullshit. Because this is also a representative democracy, and that's in the Constitution, right? A lot of people act like Doge is a government department. It's not. It's an entity. You know what I mean? That is not even part of the government apparatus. You know what I mean? They couldn't even tell you which motherfucker runs the bitch. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And at the same time, Doge is out there, finding out all these little breadcrumbs that Republicans left them, that Republicans who derailed Democratic plans, you know what I mean, and Democratic bills and shit. You know what I mean? That stopped the Republicans who derailed, stopped the Democrats. That's what they're fighting. All those breadcrumbs. They're not really small breadcrumbs. I mean, they're pieces, but they're like billions of dollars. But you know what I mean? But that's because of fucking Republicans. You know what I mean? All that money wasted now because all the effort has been wasted now because the Republicans want to fucking let it all go to waste. You know? I mean, Doge came here to Charlotte yesterday. That son of a bitch, Elon Musk. That fucking globalist traitor that nobody elected, motherfucker that is not part of any fucking governmental department. Yet he's out here fucking up every state. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? He came over here just to fucking get rid of a $1 billion grant or something that helps teachers, and schools and shit. You know what I mean? What the fuck? You know what I mean? Like, the fuck, nigga. And again, that's not part of that's not a department of the government. You know what I mean? That's just a name. That's like saying that the Federal Reserve is part of the fucking federal government, and it's not. You know what I mean? It's run by an entity, right? And it's like, and again, so like the whole thing that Doge is doing is, unlike, the Constitution doesn't allow for something like Doge to even exist. You understand? But the programs that the Democrats that had put to the people like Social Security, like Medicaid, like Medicare, like programs for kids, like SNAP benefits, or free education or free food for kids, or HIV centers, or rehabilitation centers, or drug use centers, or whatever. What I mean? Those things, what I'm saying, or abortion clinics, even. What I mean? Those things, right, are protected by the Constitution. Article 13 that says that section, or Article 13 that says that the Senate has the right to take up people's tariffs or taxes, or impose levies or whatever, to and put it to the people's defense, to national defense, and also the general well-being of the people. Which means that every single program that the Democrats do that is somewhat socialistic, when you look at the bigger picture, but it's to help people that are minorities, or people that are impoverished, or to help education or health, of our education, or clinical service, like rehabilitation centers, for people that homeless people do need. All of that is protected by the Constitution. They have the constitutional right to do that for the people, right? Then that's what Democrats do, because Republicans don't. And you're just mad that they're helping black and brown people, because now we were able to democratically choose our leaders, which we never had representation in our government, disproportionately, not even being represented by by the same type of, even to like, where you look at statistics and you look at the, then we're disproportionately outnumbered, and not represented, faithfully in politics, in the government. We don't have black and brown leaders as much as white people. You know what I mean? There's disproportionately way more white people. It's like having an all white, Hollywood. So things like DEI, is why that's what that was for. You know what I mean? Because you want to talk about DEI, you know what I'm saying? But again, an establishment full of racist white people don't want to see us. They don't want to hear our cries. They don't want to hear what we need, and so you have all white people, you know what I'm saying, in Hollywood. Who's the leading? Where's one Salvadorian actor? There's only one guy I know that's Salvadorian, and I know there's like two or three, but I mean, they're not like leading stars. I mean, there's not one. They're not like in many movies either. They're not in a major mainstream Hollywood or anything like that. You know what I mean? And how many Salvadorian rappers? You know what I mean? Or artists or whatever, music wise and stuff. Not many. You know what I'm saying? And that's what we try to change. And there's always the same Mexican, or the same. Back then it used to be the same black dude. You know what I'm saying? Token black dude, or the token Mexican dude, or whatever. But it's disproportionate to what reality is, because what is it like? Latinos are like what? Like 15% of the population, and then blacks are like what, 14% or something like that. I mean, and then white people are like what, 65 or some shit. That's bullshit. That means that every 100 people there should be 13 Latinos, and 14 Latinos and 13 blacks. I mean, and is that how we have it in the government, in the Congress? No. Just because we put Obama up there doesn't mean that the like on the lower levels, that's what it is. We're trying to work towards that. You know what I mean? But again, let me put it to you like this: the white household, on average, makes 3 times more money than a black household in America. You know what I mean? You know why? Because the establishment has always made this country built that way. You know what I mean? So that's what we trying to like. All we try to do. The Democrats were trying to do is represent people who are not just the establishment. So that's how I come to the conclusion that Republicans, what I mean, are the establishment, because they obviously are, because they hate everything like the DEI. They undid everything Obama did, Trump did, and then undid everything Biden did. And of course, the Republicans derailed many projects and they couldn't reach bipartisan legislations on major issues. You know what I mean? And so it's like, All of that because everybody wants to be their political show. Everybody wants to act like they come in and then they want to do other stuff. And the Democrats are like, yeah, sure, we can work with the Republicans, but the Republicans can't work with the Democrats. So what happens is that we have to go and try to work with them, and they're over there being fucking extremists and insurrectionists. You know what I mean? And they're over there committing treason, and what we're supposed to work with them? You mean like you know what I'm saying and that's why we are diving further right wing into fascism. You know what I mean? It's completely fucking insane, right? And so whatever you want to say, you know, I had never seen blatant treason on TV, right? Like I've seen from Trump. You know what I mean? I've seen it many times. You know, I've seen it many times. And some of the things that I want to say right now, you know, is that he committed treason when he sided with Putin and attacked every FBI agency just to derail the FBI program that was the FBI investigation from Robert Mueller and whatever that was looking into him, and it was just looking into the election hat, but he didn't want to cooperate, so he got Mark Davis locked up for 4 years because they didn't want to cooperate with the investigation. Yeah, and Trump deserved that. Trump shouldn't have even been president. He committed treason, okay, by siding with Putin and defending Putin and attacking our intelligence agencies and Hillary Clinton, and right, like I want to say, he solidified the brainwashing by making it real, by using the trigger words that you know what I'm saying that triggered the cults like words that he told his followers, which was Hillary's emails and Hillary's server, Hillary's laptop. You know what I mean? And those things they got triggered. Their mind started going crazy because they're in this cult like you know thing because they're brainwashed, and that's how he won. You know what I mean? And so that's where you put your faith in. That's where you put everything in. That's where you put your future, your life, everything. You put it through the internet, fake news by people who you think are telling you the truth. So much misinformation that the Democrats had to be like, well, after Pizzagate, nigga, you know what I mean? We gotta fucking make sure, like, where are these lies coming from? So they try to censor, or rather, fact check many of the things that Trump was saying because they found out that Trump was the one repeating it and making it real for you fuckers. He was trying to make it real for you so that you actually believe that the Democrats are evil. You know what I mean? The only person that has spread more violence is Trump himself. When he almost got shot, which I think is it might be a CIA, you know, orchestration, you know what I mean, orchestrated event, you know what I mean, in order to make him seem like he's, because you see, he wanted to be that guy. He wanted to be like, oh look, I'm a strong leader and shit. You know, he wants to be given this image. It's like a photo op. He wants to give the image that he's such a fucking strong leader. Things haven't worked more in favor to that end. And to think and knowing that Trump thinks he's like on a show, he thinks that people are stupid. He's trying to blend the world of TV and all that, his celebrity status into all this shit. He wants to be like Reagan or some shit. You know what I mean? He wants this image, right, of America, right, to give to his viewers, you know, to his utopian viewers that are sipping the Kool-Aid, you know what I mean, and this dystopia, you know, causing a dystopian future, you know what I mean. You know, he wants to give them the image that he's strong. So nothing could have worked more in favor than Michael Crooks shooting. You know what I mean? Like without that, this man had nothing because he failed in January 6th to get that image because you know they took him away from the podium and he didn't even march and they took him back to the White House and he didn't come out for 90 minutes and whatever and you know and then he finally gave a fucking speech and you know he was like a coward for 90 minutes. That was also treason because he's the one that led the charge, by the way. You know, and if that wasn't enough, when he led that insurrection, when he led, because he was a rebel leader. They had seditioners and conspirators and insurrectionists, the Proud Boys that had conspired and had made a manifesto, had made a plan. They had a plan. They had planned this to overthrow the government, right? The U.S. government, waging war against the U.S. They are domestic terrorists. They were enemies of the state. And if that's not enough, that Trump led them and said attack them, march this way, pointed at who they wanted to attack. He led them, right? If that wasn't enough, when he became president again for some fucking goddamn reason, he actually freed these enemies of the state and gave them comfort and aid, which is another act of treason, right? That's like two in a row. Like he committed two treasonous acts in a row. You know what I mean? Just with January 6th, the beginning because he let it, and then when he freed them again, and is now like recently now giving them political credence. So in 2020 and 2025, for the same fucking shit, he's committed 2 acts of treason. He freed real domestic terrorists and he freed enemies of the state who had once had a plan to overthrow the U.S. government. And don't tell me they didn't, because they did. Okay, and it was investigated. Unlike MAGA, I'm not talking bullshit here. You know, I fact check these things. I read the articles. I go and pull up like three. You know, I find a real fucking document if I have to. If not, I freaking read it, and I mean I can tell whether something is real or fake. And I still know the difference. You know what I'm saying? I haven't given up my eyes, my power, and my mind to some freaking globalist or some freaking cult leader. You know what I'm saying? I think for myself, which is what I want y'all to do, is think for yourself. Doesn't that sound like treason? Because you know the constitutional definition of giving comfort and aid to enemies of the state, you know, and harboring, you know, the enemies of the state. That is what he did. You know what I mean? And anybody, they're harboring a fugitive, they're harboring one right now. Republicans are also committing treason because they're harboring Trump inside the White House and all that shit. That's why he's firing everybody that's not against him, because they're harboring that fugitive, that traitor in there. You know what I mean? Right? His cult like following is like bow to the king, or you know, somehow they think this is a good thing. Like he's a dictator, he's king, he's Jesus or something. Like I don't know, I don't understand. You know what I mean? It's crazy. You know what I mean? And I'll never understand that. You know what I mean? I'll never understand because I'm not an idiot. Um, gave comfort and aid. So yeah, so like think for yourself. That is the definition of giving comfort and aid to enemies of the. That's traitor. That's treason. You know what I mean? Crash is, and they're enemies of the state. All right. So, like, this is something too. When you're a president, right, that has gone after Hillary Clinton, have gone after the Democrats, you know, he helped Russia, you know, spread this information. He made it real for all the hackers that were trying to attack Hillary in the first place. You know what I mean? Because they knew that Democrats were gonna fuck up. They would have never let Russia do what Russia's doing right now. You know what I mean? And they would have never they wouldn't have let Israel do it. I doubt it. I doubt that they would have let Israel do this to this extent. You know what I mean? They wouldn't have. No, they wouldn't, because we've been saying this shit like for a minute. You know, they wouldn't have crashed the market. You know, I can tell you that right now. You know what I mean? They wouldn't have tried to let you know, globalist Mark Zuckerberg and I mean Elon Musk would have been gone. I mean, SpaceX would have been dissolved already by the FCC or FAA, who was investigating him because he had an expired license, and he was recklessly still blowing up freaking rockets over Turks and Caicos with an expired license that he didn't want to renew. He would have been done. SpaceX would have been shut down by the FAA. He wouldn't have, and if he would have done that, then he would have never. They would have never scrapped NASA, and they would have, and he would, and NASA would still be, you know, sort of operational. Um, you know, okay, so and all these programs wouldn't have been cut right now. You know what I mean? And people are suffering. You just don't hear their cries because you don't want to give them a voice. Because we were the voice. Democrats were their voice. You know what I mean, the establishment is not their voice. MAGA doesn't care about their own co-citizens. They don't care about harming their own citizens. I mean, that's why they're traitors too. You know what I mean? And I know this because they only care for themselves. They've actually said that they don't give a shit about nobody but themselves. And you know, and you know, they're not America, brother. These people are just people who hate America, and you know, maybe their girlfriend cheated on them, maybe they're losers. I mean, who knows? I mean, all I know is that they don't care about the well-being of other co-citizens. You know, so they're divided again because they think that Democrats are evil. They've been convinced of this. They don't admit that they're brainwashed. I mean, okay, so what else? they actually think that we believe that men and women and whatever and abortion and all this stuff. But again, Christian nationalism is not supported by the Constitution. Hating liberals is not, being an American, being liberal is the most American thing you can be. You know why? Because this country was built for liberals to exist. Why I know that? Because the First Amendment is literally freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom of assembly, right? And freedom of religion, right? So all of this is to say you have the liberty to say whatever you want, be who you are, and you shouldn't be scared to be who you are, right? Um, at the same time, the Second Amendment expands on the first and says that if there's any tyrannical government that tries to stop you, you have the right to bear arms and have a regulated militia. Which today I wonder where the fuck they're at, because I haven't seen them take out this traitor and MAGA at all. You know what I mean? And they're called the National Guard. The National Guard for me looks like they're just part of the fucking army. They don't look like the regulated militia that is supposed to defend us. Because if they were, then they would have defended us against MAGA, and they'd be defending every single state against MAGA. Especially when we say we don't want fucking MAGA. Especially when we're out here fighting, they're supposed to defend us against police. Corruption. They're supposed to defend us against these crackers, these against Trump himself. You're getting the traitor out of the White House. So where is our regulated militia? It is now part of it is now branched in the army, which means that it follows orders, not us. And shit. So now it's just like a right wing commander now gets to tell them what the fuck to do. They gotta follow orders. So what's the point of having a fucking regulated militia if they're still gonna be following orders under supposedly the commander in chief? Makes no fucking sense whatsoever. I mean, but that's how they've structured it. That's how the establishment has structured it. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So what else? And I might be a little bit wrong, but that's how that's how it's looking, because I haven't seen the National Guard be mobilized, and the people that usually mobilize it, they mobilize it for fucking the establishment, for the fucking very army and shit, not against the police corruption, not against the MAGA insurrectionists. You know what I mean? Not against Trump the traitor. You know what I mean? And so anyway, so what is this? Um, Another reason he's a traitor, right? He's economically done warfare against us because he wanted to tank the markets and centralize powers into his oligarchy. He made his billionaire friends. He's trying to make his billionaire friends money. These are traitor. I know he's broken many laws. Like he's done a pump and dump scheme. You know what I'm saying? Insider trading. Which that's why he wants to further deregulation in the SEC, because he wants to be allowed to do that shit. You know what I mean? Just to enrich themselves. You know what I mean? But I'm not talking about. I'm talking about treasonous traitors. But the act of itself of doing this economical shit, he's also waging economical warfare against China with the tariffs, and against our own allies, which he started like a trade war. He's starting a trade war. You know what I mean? At the same time, right? He's cut off benefits that were constitutionally protected against the U.S. citizens. Actually, if you, I go as far as say as that the COVID shit, you know what I mean, was a war against the United States, and that he helped kill 500,000 people. You know what I mean? Because of his recklessness and because of his lack of his incompetence and his lying. You know what I mean? So there's already mad blood on his hand. But like I will say this, when you do it in the same time as helping Russia and misinformation target Democrats, while also leading freeing domestic terrorists that are enemies of the state and giving them comfort and aid, and giving a rise to neo Nazis and far right wing fascism and shit, while demonizing Democrats, and what I mean, helping globalists and technocrats, billionaires who have gone tax cuts become an authoritarian oligarchy, which is what they want to become or whatever. I mean, in helping globalists dismantle every single fucking state or with the which is Doge that is not part of the department of any nobody elected that shit. Who the fuck runs that bitch? I mean, all of that together, right? Plus, what we have recently found out yesterday of what he wants to do, which is to deport U.S. citizens, right? It's not just an attack on our Constitution, not just an attack on our government and our political parties. What he's doing is he's waging a war against American people. He's levying war against Americans. And with globalist Trump being one of those people that's helping him get money to do so. To attack Democrats, which are Americans, and the people who they're representing, who are the people. Right? So he's waging war against the people of the United States. And he's always been doing this. You just never fucking read that shit. And that is in the Constitution. That is a form of treason. When he's economically fucking us over and then cutting off our aid, leading us unprotected against pandemics or whatever have you. He's also helping spread misinformation against the Democratic Party, which is now leading to extremism because he's also endorsed domestic terrorists. I mean, like Josh Shapiro's house being burned because of the misinformation and the radicalism that he's promoting within MAGA, right? He's more aligned with Putin than he is with Hillary, apparently. In his speeches, that's how it comes across. So all of this, now he wants to deport U.S. citizens. You know what I mean? And he was saying that to another traitor of his country, Bukele, who both men want to, I can't call them gentlemen, I just can't. Both of them are far right wing fascist wannabe motherfuckers that are trying to destroy democracy and the people's voice and the people's participation in government and in El Salvador and in America, you know what I mean? And trying to suppress the people's voice while enriching their oligarchies. And since they've had the power because they're connected and they have this network of fascists across the world, you know what I mean? They think they have the power to oppress the people, convince some of them that this is the right way to go, right? And now they're bypassing the nation's constitutions in order to extend their term limits so that they can continue to do this and creating essentially what's fascism. You know, this historically speaking always leads to massacres of innocent people, unarmed people. I mean, this is in El Salvador. They killed a bishop of the Catholic Church. They ethnically cleansed, indigenous people. You know what I mean? And they said that the culprit were leftists, and the leftists were just farmers on their own land trying to fight for democracy, for their voice to be heard, for them to say, hey, I want to farm on my own land and be able to do that. Why are you taking my land? You know what I mean? So that's what y'all should understand, you know what I'm saying? And that's where we're at now. So his latest thing is so clear that he's waging war against the American people. He's attacking our democratic leaders, which represent the people, using Russia's help and hackers' help, along with globalists' help that are out for their own interests, while crashing our economy and then taking away our benefits. You know what I mean? Leaving us out to dry, the pandemic. You know what I mean? And to die, that is. You know what I mean? And then freeing the enemies of the state and insurrectionists that were also our enemies. You know what I mean? Enemies of the state, so enemies of our government. You know what I mean? Enemies of us. And then, you know what I'm saying, but he wants to say that immigrants, and he has this, of course, he wants to transfer that hate towards immigrants instead. You know what I mean? And again, another problem which they probably helped orchestrate. Like the CIA helped orchestrate the cartels. They came about with the cartels. The CIA might have came about with MS-13. They might have came about with Reina Vagua. It's all because of American influence. And anyways, I mean, these countries have been at the mercy of America. I don't say the mercy. I want to say the oppression of America. You know what I mean? Because they don't really care about them. wishes to deport people he calls criminals, that he calls criminals. But remember, he calls domestic terrorists and enemies of the state. He calls them, political party. He gives them political credence. People who don't agree. So he's normalizing far right wing fascists. You know what I mean? While trying to get, while trying to say that that constitutionally protected socialistic things that help the people are not, that's communism. That's what he's trying to say. You know what I mean? And of course, because the Americans believe that Christian nationalism can happen in America, which is not true, because of the First Amendment, right? When he thinks that this is a constitutional republic, that's true, but it's also a representative democracy because we elect our leaders, right? And again, that we have the Senate, we have branches of government, we have three branches of government, we have checks and balances, we have vetoes, we have impeachments, we have the things that stop this from being just that, nigga. You know what I mean? So we have our representative elected leaders. So we partake in the government. We have a representative democracy. You know what I mean? So, that's also in the Constitution. But they forget that, right? They want to just go with, oh, God and a Constitution which they don't even care about. Because they probably apparently never read it. They hate liberals, and being liberal is the most American thing you can be. The difference between gay people and is not that, the difference between Democrats, like when it came down to gay people and abortion, because they wanted to play identity politics, is this, that people have the right to be gay, but it doesn't make it illegal and frowned upon if you're not gay. You know what I mean? Or is that how y'all felt? Did y'all feel that y'all were pressured to be gay or some shit? Is that how much of a fucking loser Republicans are? That they have inclinations, so they're like, no, we got to stop this because it's turning me gay. You know what I mean? Is that what they were saying? Is that what they were saying? You know what I mean? But the difference is that gay people, if you're straight, they don't say shit about you. You know what I mean? Well, how they gonna say shit about you? You're straight. You know what I mean? Whereas where you harass them and condemn them and y'all stab them 27 times because that's what because y'all are fucking crazy as motherfuckers. You see, that is hate towards them. You know what I mean? They don't show hate towards you. All they were trying to do is have the freedom to be what they are. You know what I mean? Which is a protected right. So Christian nationalism cannot, you're trying to make it illegal to be, anything but what you think is good, right? You know what I mean? And then you're like, y'all don't follow the law. Y'all don't know God. Y'all don't know love or mercy. Come on. Y'all fake Christians at best. I mean, y'all materialistic in any way. Voted for Trump and like, unfortunately, you don't know this, but you're like a fascist, and fascism is under the umbrella of, capitalism. Well, actually, fascism is capitalism without socialism, which is really under the umbrella of materialism, right? And because of that, and if you don't know that that's what you are, it just goes to show that that's what, I mean, that doesn't mean that you're not what you are. I mean, you're a fascist and you're materialistic and you care more about material things than money and the MAGA dream and property and, your rebate taxes, whatever, and your assets and your stock market. That's what you care more about than human beings or God or, any of this stuff, the spiritual stuff. You do not know Jesus Christ. You do not, that you claim like you claim you do. You do not know these things, and that's what you are. You worship money. You worship material things, and that's what MAGA is. You know what I mean? That's what MAGA is, whether they know it or not, because that's what they're fucking. They're that's what the flood is leading them to, because they don't want to get off of it. You know what I mean? That's where they're going to. They want to go to fascism. You know what I mean? Absolutely insane. So yeah, so in this video I listed about 4 reasons as to why Trump's a traitor, and yet, no, he hasn't gotten arrested, not for one of them, but other fun facts of the Constitution that he's broken, right? Because of course I say he's levying war, the ultimate one that we're at right now, which is basically I can say, with confidence that he's levying war against the United States of American people, against the people, which is an impeachable offense, but it's also treasonous. You know what I mean? Because of the fact that he wants to deport us, and also because he's crashed the market against us, right, and left us out in the dark during COVID. Also because he has a globalist who's dismantling, constitutionally protected programs, that are for the benefit of the well-being of people. You know what I mean? especially because he's getting rid of our defenses, our cybersecurity defenses, which is again a constitutionally protected right to have our defense. You know what I mean? So he's waging war against us, and he's used Russia to help brainwash these masses of people, right? That are now becoming insurrectionists that he protects and he frees. So he's waging war against us, and not to mention that he wants to obviously attack Democrats and Hillary Clinton and all these people, right? So he's waging war against the American people, which is the ultimate offense, the ultimate, like, well, for me, that's what we're in right now. So that's the culmination of all these things put together. That's what he's doing. And if he doesn't even know that that's what he's doing, then that's just some other shit. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, but yeah, he also sided with Putin instead of with the American agencies, the intelligence agencies. That's also treason. He gave comfort and aid to enemies of the state, namely Proud Boy insurrectionists who had a conspiracy to overthrow the government, enemies of the state. You know what I mean? He gave them comfort and aid. He freed them and then gave them political credence. Um, all of this stuff is against the Constitution of America. But again, those are all falling under the treason as acts. Levying war against them. Like, did I mention? I think I made it clear, right? Giving comfort and aid. You know what I mean? Representing a foreign nation's interest. Okay, so representing a foreign nation's interest, namely Putin and Russia, right, by attacking our agencies, um, and letting him, spread misinformation about Democrats like Pizzagate, you know what I mean, or some shit, that y'all eat it up. Um, you know, uh, then you gave comfort and aid to insurrectionists, to enemies of the state of January 6th, right? Then you are levying war against the American people by wishing to deport them, the people that you call terrorists. It all culminates with your levying war, and $250 million from a globalist to dismantle us. That's an act of war as well. You know what I mean? And of course, economics. You're trying to impose those tariffs. That's also an economical warfare. That's what people do during war. You are trying to usurp power with a 1798 old ass bill that was used during a time of war. So that means you are waging war, and since you're targeting us to trying to deport us during that time that you're trying to usurp power during a time of war, who's the only enemy is us, apparently the Democrats. So you are levying war against us. That's what it really is. That's what it comes down to. So, you know, those are all under the terms of traitor, what I mean, as the Constitution that defines it. And he's broken each single one. I mean, you tell me where you find a flaw in my logic, what I mean, because this shit is clear as day. What I mean? So what else? The fact that corrupt Republican judges don't want to arrest him or address this issue is a different story completely. That's like saying that he didn't rape E. Jean Carroll when, of course, the digital penetration was founded in the in the courtroom, and that is said by, Representative Ted Lieu. Enters into the congressional record, Judge Kaplan's finding that Trump raped E. Jean Carroll. You know what I mean? It's clear. It's a public record. It's in congressional record. You know what I mean? So go ahead. Try to dispute that shit, and not to mention, you know what I mean, that just because it wasn't found in the courtroom doesn't always necessarily means it happens, because most of these things never go to the courtroom. You know what I mean? Courtroom, such as his first wife that said that he brutally raped her, you know what I mean, and who later retracted her statement, but then again never made it to the courtroom. But so what? You know what I mean? Does it mean it was a lie? I mean, how many times has a woman, said something and then she regrets it, she takes it back? It's called being in an abusive relationship. You know what I mean? Anyway, you know what I mean? What was I gonna say? Y'all don't care about women. Y'all voted for a rapist. I mean, you know what I'm saying? 57% of white women or whatever, 50 whatever, white women that voted for Trump, brainwashed sluts. Sorry, you're materialistic. They are the most privileged class. Commend women that are not just privileged, materialistic. You know what I mean? Women who voted for a rapist. And I hope you fucking guys understand that too. You know what I mean? Because not only did he rape E. Jean Carroll, but then he lied about it, committed perjury basically. But he also threatened to sue E. Jean Carroll for defamation, in which he lost, and he had to pay money. because he threatened to sue her. He was terrorizing her, trying to intimidate her. You know what I'm saying? Just like how MAGA tries to, like, when they do, when they say that, oh man, yo, like, you know, we're gonna sue you because you better find out, you better lawyer up because we're gonna fucking find you liable for slander. Man, fuck, you know, fuck that rapist, man. Trump is a rapist. You know what I mean? You know, that's why, because he did rape E.G. Carroll. That's congressional record. Go look it up, you fucking faggot. You know what I mean? Anyway, you know what I mean? Sorry about that, but you know, that's how it is. You know what I'm saying? That's just the truth. And so he is a rapist. So, you know, explain that to your kids one day when they're looking up and they wonder why why you're so fucking crazy. And, you know, explain to them that you voted for a fucking rapist. You know what I mean? And that you're telling kids that they should, like young men, that's what a strong leader king looks like, a rapist king. You know what I mean? A dude who raped a woman, then tried to terrorize her by suing her and lost a defamation lawsuit. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Amongst other things, how about tell them, tell them about Jeffrey Epstein. Tell them how Trump was friends with that nigga for 16 years, 15 years. You know what I mean? Flew on his jet, probably banged his wife. Probably they probably swapped wives before. I mean, come on. The type of man. Tell him about his first wife. How his first wife accused him of rape and brutally raping her, ripping out a chunk of her scalp. You know what I mean? How about that? You know what I mean? How about you tell him that? But one day you're gonna have to explain yourself as to why you told your kid to look up to a fucking rapist. Friends of sex traffickers and shit, a child predator. You know what I mean? You're gonna have to explain that. Why you look up to an insurrectionist, a traitor. You know what I mean? A man who has broken almost every freaking rule in the Constitution. Why are you looking up to a fascist pig and you are an American? I mean, you're gonna have to explain that to your children. Your sons, before they start thinking obviously that they should be looking up and trying to mimic a rapist. You know what I mean? Same thing with your daughters. You know what I mean? Explain to your daughters why you want daddy to come home when daddy's a rapist. You know what I mean? And you want your little girls to fall in line. You know what I mean? And bow down to rapists. You know what I mean? You fucking go ahead, rich white men that are rapists. Go ahead and explain that one to your daughters. You know what I mean? And shit, because you motherfuckers gonna be doing a lot of backtracking. You know what I mean? When all this shit comes to light. You stupid motherfuckers, man. I'm just gonna go ahead and say, don't be surprised when those kids, if and when those kids decide to open their minds and leave your stupid dog ass. Because the last thing we need is a bunch of fucking KKK, stupid ass, fucking racist ass kids running around. Because that's what the hell we had. That's what I grew up with, a bunch of these stupid ass, conservative ass kids that love their parents too much to fucking admit that their parents are full of shit. Okay? Because let me tell you about that. Because the KKK believe in a purity factor. They believe that Jesus told them that, love thy neighbor means their own race and nobody else's. You know what I mean? Not to break bread with any other race. Well, let me tell you what Jesus really said, because it's the Holy Week. You know what I mean? What Jesus said was to love thy neighbor. Who is thy neighbor? Well, what does that mean, love thy neighbor? Well, then again, there's a story of the three Samaritans, you know what I mean, of the Good Samaritan, where there was a man who was walking alongside the road, and during that time, he was, well, let me try to find the story. Yeah, I think I could close out with that, right? So I think I'll close out with reading y'all the story of the Good Samaritan, right? Because I think that if you're watching this video, that the country, whatever state it might be in, probably is gonna need it. It probably needs a story like this. You know what I mean?